Brexit talks in Brussels are on ice. EU members now looking to March next year when Britain leaves the single market and customs union. A big issue for the Netherlands due to the large volume of trade with Britain via the port of Rotterdam. The Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs has designed a checklist called the BREXIT scan to help companies cope.
Every day at 1 on the dot, the Daily Fresh company is in a hectic rush. Dozens of trucks deliver fruit and vegetables. Tomatoes, pears and strawberries from the Netherlands and Belgium. The warehouse near Rotterdam looks like a map of Great Britain. Melons to Glasgow, onions to Edinburgh, peppers to Manchester and Liverpool. Every day, Daily Fresh sends 120 trucks by ferry across the English Channel. Every minute in the supply chain is precisely timed, but people here fear that could all grind to a halt if Britain leaves the EU without a trade deal. We would have to introduce controls on all products, especially vegetables and fruit, sanitary checks for customs papers. That would be a real setback for us because the British are the third largest importer of Dutch vegetables. Authorities at the port of Rotterdam aren't thrilled about the prospect. They handle a large part of the trade with Great Britain. Almost 10% of Dutch exports go to the United Kingdom. Officials have long calculated what a hard Brexit would cost. Instead of one paper, 9 more customs forms would be added for the export of fruit and vegetables. 900 new customs officers would have to be recruited, plus 143 veterinarians for the food checks. And that would only be the beginning, says the Brexit expert at the port of Rotterdam. We're in the process of getting ready. We're informing the container terminals and the forwarders. But that's not enough because most of the goods, 25% of them, come from Germany. And we don't have the feeling that exporters in Germany are as aware of Brexit problems as we are here. In fact, the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs has sent a checklist called the BREXIT scan to thousands of companies to better prepare them for possible problems. Ron Boymans filled out the questionnaire, but it hasn't made his worries disappear. The stone dealer imports slate from Wales and sells it to garden centers, some of them in Germany. He expects rising prices and a fluctuating British pound. He's already made provisions in his own way by storing 3 times the amount of coveted blue slate from Wales. Now he has all he needs in case Britain is slated for a hard Brexit.
Brexit could be a threat to the full English breakfast, the slap-up feast of sausages, eggs, black pudding and bacon. It's world famous, but here's the rub. Denmark is the #1 breakfast bacon supplier for Britain, and it's an EU member state, which the UK won't be next March.
What would a classic British breakfast be without it? Bacon! And often enough, it comes from Danish pigs, courtesy of pork specialist Thyssen's factories. They've been keeping British tables full for over 100 years. With up to 10,000 pigs a week, the UK is home to their most important customers, but that could change after Brexit. If no agreement is reached, then we will be forced to send products to the UK with a duty of approximately 40%. 40% that could soon be passed on to the customers. I think that British consumers will get a wake-up call if they still want the same amount of bacon as today. Then the price will become considerably higher. And for Thyssen's CEO, that means his company's exports could soon be under pressure. But he hasn't given up hope for a deal that suppliers and Britons can live with.
Well, despite what you hear all the time about global trade falling apart, some countries are coming closer together. Europe is strengthening its ties with Asia. The EU and Singapore are signing a new free trade agreement during the ASEAN summit, and the European Commission has approved another free trade deal for the bloc, this time with Vietnam.
Rioja wine from Spain, Roquefort cheese from France, and Parma ham from Italy. Only 3 of nearly 170 products that will enjoy the same trademark protection in Vietnam as they do in Europe. The new free trade deal with Vietnam would also vanquish nearly all existing custom duties. The European Parliament and each of the EU's 28 members must still approve the deal, and some concerns about the political implications have been voiced, but the EU's Trade Commissioner understands.
There are severe problems regarding human rights in Vietnam. Nobody denies this. We are talking openly about this with our Vietnamese counterparts, and the trade agreement will not, of course, make Vietnam a fully fledged democracy overnight. It is one tool in the toolbox that we have in our relations with Vietnam and other countries.
A similar free trade pact has already been approved by EU member nations and Singapore. That one is scheduled to be signed at a meeting in Brussels on Friday. If the Vietnam deal is also approved, the EU will have free trade with two of its biggest partners in the ASEAN group of nations.